We are live. Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome. All right. It looks like we were just having a momentary pause there where we're sorting our stuff out. Thanks for joining, everybody. My name is Phoebe. I run Hacktoberfest, and I am super excited to have you join us today for this session where we get to talk to some of the luminaries in the AI space and open source space, talking about what the future might look like for this interesting new world we live in where open source is driving so many of the technologies under the hood of the companies that we use and love, and also artificial intelligence. Let's maybe start by telling us where you're joining us from. We'd love to see your comments in the chat. I am from Boulder, Colorado, and I'm going to pass it over to Amy, who's my co-host today. Yay, welcome, Amy.
Hey. Hi, everyone. My name is Amy. I do DevRel here over at DigitalOcean, and I am currently based in Chicago, where it decided last week it was going to be fall. James?
Me, James?
Now we have the dilemma of
Oh,
which
that
James
is
it
correct.
I'll go second. You go ahead.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm James Skelton. I'm a technical evangelist from Paperspace, and I'm calling in from Austin, Texas today. Mr. Quick.
What's up, everyone? James Quick. I am a developer, speaker, and teacher, and I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, where we have now decided that it's summer again, or at least like very hot for now. So it's like 85 degrees outside. I don't like it, but next week will be very cold. So we'll see how that goes. False fall. Yeah, not fun.
I love the Midwestern seasons.
All of a sudden, Boulder decided it was going to be winter. So yeah, that's what's happening here. Where are you calling in from, Dylan?
I'm calling in from Boston. And since we're going with the weather, here it is summer. It was like 75 today, 25 Celsius. So for some reason, it's summer at Halloween.
Awesome. Well, folks, as you know, we're here to kind of talk about open source and artificial intelligence. And we have some great folks from companies that are doing very cool things in this space. So we'd love to, actually, I want to know about Mish Manners. We almost skipped you there. Thank you for.
That's okay. I live in Australia. Everyone forgets about us.
No, we love Australia.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Mish Manners from GitHub. I'm on the developer advocate team, so also in DevRel like Amy is, which is super fun. Since everyone is on the theme of the weather, I'm on the opposite side of the world. So it's supposed to be heading into summer. So it's supposed to be like 30 degrees Celsius, which is like 98 Fahrenheit, except it has been all over the place. So yesterday we had some thunderstorms, we had some rain, then the sun came out, then we had hail, then it rained again, then the sun decided to come out, then we had a hot wind, then we had a cold wind. Nobody knows what's going on here. So I could be anywhere in the world right now based on the weather. So yeah, that's fun.
Well, like I said, we're really excited to have you here, particularly because you are representing GitHub, and so much of Hacktoberfest happens on GitHub. So yeah, we'd like to kind of start by doing real, true introductions. Have you talk a little bit about what your company does, what you do there, what are some cool things that are happening right now. And so let's actually go ahead and start with you, Mish. We had one other guest who was supposed to join us today who was supposed to go first, but they are not here. Unfortunately, DAGS Hub is unable to join us, but I will share a little bit about DAGS Hub towards the end. So let's start with you, Mish.
Fantastic. Thanks, baby. So yeah, GitHub is a place where Hacktoberfest has been happening for the last 10 years. It's great that it's still happening. And thank you so much, Phoebe, for making sure Hacktoberfest continues to run. Really excited to have it continue to run and to see all the amazing pull requests that people are making as well. So GitHub is an open source collaboration platform where people come together to build software, to collaborate on code, and to do awesome things. So lots of you are working on Hacktoberfest projects, which are on GitHub, and that's fantastic to see. What's really cool about GitHub, especially this year and in the last few years too, is we keep putting out really cool things to help you with your coding journey, to help you make your development life a lot easier. And one of the big hot topics at the moment is AI. And hopefully a lot of you have tried out the GitHub AI system, which is GitHub Copilot. Now, GitHub Copilot is awesome. It allows you, it doesn't just like do autocomplete for you. It's not trying to predict what you're going to write. It's synthesizing and developing and creating code for you and with you. So you can use it within whichever editor you want. If you're using JetBrains, IntelliJ, VS Code, which is my favorite. It works in any of those editors, so you don't have to leave the platform that you're working in. You can work right within your IDE and not break your workflow. Another great thing about GitHub Copilot is if you haven't tried it, it is free for 60 days to try. So Hacktoberfest is a perfect time to try out GitHub Copilot, where a lot of people working on different projects. They're working on things that they haven't done before. They might be working with code that might be unfamiliar. So having GitHub Copilot to help you along that coding journey and help you make those pull requests is a really great thing. Also, if you're a student, we have a lot of students join Hacktoberfest. You can get GitHub Copilot for free through the Student Developer Pack, which you can find by going to the GitHub Global Campus website and registering with your student email, and you'll be able to have access not just to GitHub Copilot, but to so many different things. I believe we give DigitalOcean credits as well. And there's a whole lot of stuff that you can get as a student. I think there's over $200,000 US worth of free things you can get as a student. So web hosting services and all those kinds of things. So if you're a student, definitely check out GitHub Global Campus, and Phoebe's dropped it in there. So thank you. And yeah, looking forward to seeing all your pull requests. So keep those coming through, and also share it on socials as well. We'd love to see what people are doing during Hacktoberfest. Hacktoberfest has their own Twitter, or X, if we are going to go with the new name, has its own X channel. So tag Hacktoberfest, use the hashtag as well. And we'd love to see what everyone's working on, which is awesome. So thanks everyone so far. I know there's a lot of participants so far, and looking forward to seeing everyone continue to put those pull requests in for the last week and a half of Hacktoberfest.
Yeah, and I know, Mish, you're getting ready because GitHub Universe is coming. Can you tell us a little bit about GitHub Universe?
Yeah, sure. So GitHub Universe is like our big flagship event for each year, kind of like, you know, those big companies that have their one big event where they make all their announcements, they do all their big launches, and it's a really great way to interact with that company. So GitHub Universe is that for GitHub. So it's happening on the 8th and 9th of November, so like literally 2 weeks away. You can join us in person in San Francisco if you're going to be in San Francisco, or if you're like me and can't travel over to America, then you can join us online as well. So online tickets are free, and the in-person events, all the prices and stuff on the website. But yeah, it's a great time where you can connect with other GitHub employees. We call ourselves Hubbers, so you can connect with Hubbers, you can connect with other members of the community, and also just see all the latest announcements that we're going to be making. I've seen the list of a few things that we're making, announcements, and I'm like, this is so cool. I'm so excited. So yeah, if you're into GitHub at all, or open source, please join GitHub Universe. It's going to be so fun. There's going to be some really great announcements. I'm really looking forward to seeing the keynote from Thomas. There's a big theme around AI this year. So AI is a hot topic. So they're talking a lot about the new GitHub Copilot. Well, not just the new GitHub Copilot, but GitHub Copilot Chat, which a lot of people are already trying in public beta. So thank you for trying that out. So if you haven't tried out the GitHub Copilot Chat, it's in public beta. So yeah, lots of announcements about GitHub Copilot, lots of announcements about general AI and the state of AI around the world. And we've got 3 special tracks this year. So we're focusing on artificial intelligence, DevX, which is kind of a new term a lot of people have been throwing around. So developer experience, and also security. And even this year, we've curated a bunch of special tracks for you. So if you're like, oh, I'm into open source, or I want to learn more about software development, you can join that specific track and see all the sessions that are specific to, say, open source or software development. So head to the website, githubuniverse.com. We'll drop it in the chat. So thank you, Lisa, for that. And yeah, register your interest either joining us live in San Francisco or virtually. And if you're joining virtually, I will see you in the virtual chats and the discussions.
Awesome. So much goodness coming from GitHub. All right, let's go over to, let's see, where were we? We had, let's meet Dylan.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hi,
introduce
I'm
yourself.
Dylan. Is this my short introduction or the presentation?
You can go for it. Do the whole thing.
Okay. I'll share my screen in that case. So a little background on this presentation. When I was making it, I decided I need to formalize what this actually means. So I actually put out a video recently. If you look up the Hugging Face YouTube or TikTok, you're going to find this video that is basically this presentation, but now you get the live version. Okay, let's see. Okay, let me know. Can you see this changing?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, thank you. So, hi everyone. Today I'll be talking to you about Hugging Face. But first, who am I? A little bit about me. I'm Dylan. I'm a developer advocate at Hugging Face. I work at the intersection of AI, 3D, and game development. And I also make a lot of the educational videos, often under the alias Individual Kex. So what is Hugging Face? The official description is it's a leading platform for AI builders, democratizing good machine learning. But what does that actually mean? There are 3 pillars: models, datasets, and spaces, all of which are community-driven, and I'll go into some more detail on what these are. Models are what actually do the AI. We host hundreds of thousands of them, including ones from some major companies like Google, Microsoft, Meta, and research institutions like Stanford, and also open source communities like Eleuther AI. And then there's datasets. These are openly accessible and used to train models. And then finally, spaces, which let you easily demo and showcase models. A recent example of these is Illusion Diffusion. You might have seen some of these in the past month. It was pretty viral to some extent. And if you saw them, there's a good chance it was hosted on Hugging Face, or as a Hugging Face space. And then you can combine all of these and combine them with our open source libraries, which are things like transformers, diffusers, accelerate, and many others. Like there's a lot of them in this picture. They make it easy to build, share, and use the latest AI models. And all of this is also free. But if you need more compute, or if you need specialized support, help deploying your own models, then we have that too. So if you want to be involved in the open source community and you haven't checked it out already, then you can just go to hf.co. Pretty easy link. And that's it from me.
That's honestly amazing, and I've never seen a shorter URL to anything in my life. That was actually quite impressive.
Yeah, I think like when we start talking a little bit later about kind of this intersection of AI and open source, I'll be really curious to see kind of where Hugging Face is interacting in that space. So yeah, let's talk about that more in just a little bit. Let's head over to you, James Skelton, from Paperspace.
Hi, thank you. Let me just share my screen as well. Make sure I'm sharing the right window. Okay, cool. We got that on the screen. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is James Skelton, and I'm a technical evangelist from Paperspace by DigitalOcean. I operate in the educational and developer evangelism spheres of machine and deep learning on the cloud, primarily by running our blog, which you'll get a link to later, and our webinar series, Tech Talks. Really quick, I want to introduce you all to Paperspace, our platform, and talk a little bit about our goals for serving the deep learning market. To put it succinctly, Paperspace is a cloud GPU provider with options for both fully enabled Windows and Linux virtual machines, as well as our versatile MLOps framework. These are all enabled by one of the widest varieties of desktop and data center NVIDIA GPUs on the cloud, with everything from Maxwell M4000 GPUs all the way up to the latest H100s available on all of the machines in our product line. That's poorly worded, but I think y'all get it. They're available for use with all of our products. Talk a little bit about some of these different products. The first is our core product machines. Those are the virtual machines. They have variable GPU power available at a click. It's really easy to change. And they're extremely well suited for training and working with novel deep learning models in general. They're accessible through SSH or through an in-application desktop view. So they're really easy to work with on whatever machine you're working on your local. And in addition to deep learning, they're really, I use these personally for it, really great for game development, graphic design, and just general data science. It's just a versatile machine offering. The next I'll bring up is our MLOps platform. We have two main products on there. These are the Jupyter Labs-like notebook service and our dedicated deployment service. I'm going to assume the notebooks will be familiar to any of you that have ever worked with IPython notebooks. It's based exactly on Jupyter Labs, while still maintaining the power of the GPU cloud infrastructure provided by Paperspace underneath. You can really take just about any IPython notebook and run it on our notebooks product without issue. And with our wide variety of runtimes and templates on our notebook creation page and provided by our blog, users can kind of get a huge variety of scaffolds for getting started. So everything from Stable Diffusion to training GPT models, we have templates for it. After development with the machines or notebooks products, the deployments tool allows users to easily take their trained deep learning models and serve them as API endpoints. And the built-in storage systems we have lying underneath facilitate that. Together, these make it easy to rapidly test deep learning models and then deploy them to users respectively, the notebooks and deployments. Furthermore, we got a really nice team system that allows for collaboration across development teams. So you can do all this with your partners without any hassle. So far, we got more than 600,000 users, and it provided over 100 million hours of GPU compute to our users, who are primarily operating in the machine learning development space. I'm going to provide some demo links in the chat, as well as a link to contact sales if you have any interest in pursuing a long-term GPU reservation with Paperspace. And I really encourage you all to try out our notebooks product using some of the free GPU machines that we offer. Thank you so much for having me, by the way. I think I'm going to pass it on now.
Thanks, James. Alrighty, it's just mind-boggling to me, like how much has proliferated in the AI space in just even a super short period of time. I've been in the industry, well, longer than I would like to admit, but but it feels like I think AI just kind of came onto everybody's radars a few years ago. Obviously, AI had been, happening in the background for a lot longer than that, but now it's just endemic and we're using it every day. I can't honestly think of a tool that I'm using that doesn't have an AI addition to it now. So it's just really interesting to hear about how each one of you are approaching AI. Let's talk to James Quick, who's joining us from, I think, James, where are you located in the world?
Located in Memphis, Tennessee.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I tell people I'm a developer, speaker, and a teacher because I don't know what to call myself, but I've done those things professionally for about 10 years. I think several people have developer experience. That's what the majority of my career has been in. And then I've been doing basically content creation and other things on my own for the past year and a half, which has been a ton of fun. This conversation is particularly interesting. I've given a couple talks on the impact of AI on developer experience, coming from the perspective of just being a normal developer like everyone else, not having any background in AI or machine learning, but noticing and recognizing the impact that it's already having, and I think will continue to have. And I am the founder of a philosophy of mine that has turned into a Discord community called Learn, Build, Teach. And the idea is that as developers, we spend a lot of time learning. We spend time using what we learn to build stuff, and then we teach other people how to do it too, to benefit the community. And the best way to learn is to teach, or to like reinforce the things that we think we already know. So that's a beginner-friendly Discord community where we do weekly Leak Code live coding sessions, and then also have a Wins of the Week session to help celebrate all the great wins from people in the community. And you get a link right there to find that at learnbuildteach.com. The other thing I'll mention, if you're curious to follow any of my content or just what's top of mind on a weekly basis, I do a newsletter at jamesqquick.com/newsletter. And I say weekly, I didn't do it for about a month, but I did send it this week. So I should be back on track going forward if anybody's interested. But that's it.
Amazing. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to hand this over to Amy to take us into the next section, which is where we're going to start talking about some of these questions about the future of open source and AI.
Right. So one of the things that is where this stream is going to be a little bit different than all the others, where we're actually going to have a live discussion about a lot of the issues going into AI and ML and what it looks like right now and where it's going. If you have any questions in chat, please drop them in, and then we'll try to sneak them in towards the end. But first of all, this one is open for everyone. We've mentioned this, like, it's come up on all of our radars recently. It's kind of exploding. So what is happening with it that is suddenly making it more available for everybody? Why is it the thing right now?
To clarify, you mean AI?
The ML AI space, just in general. I do know that, like, a few years ago, ML was starting to gain a lot of traction. There are a lot of providers with their own managed services who started to really push towards that way, but it seemed to go from a bunch of dedicated data scientists really investigating this problem to suddenly every consumer product now has an AI.
Yeah.
That is not a chatbot, which is very interesting. So how do you think we got here?
Is that a general question for everyone?
Yeah, Mitch?
Okay. Unless I think James wanted to go first. James, did you want to go first?
I'm happy to defer. I can take a stab at it.
You go first, and I'll go after you.
All right. So I was able to look at this question before, so I thought about it a bit. I think we're in a bit of a perfect storm situation right now. I think there's three factors that happened, and probably a lot more, but three that I can explicitly identify. First was that AI very recently started being able to do real things. Weak AI, as we refer to as pretty much everything that's available. There's no general or strong AI yet. Weak AI is finally able to do approximately human behavior stuff. It has to be really focused, but it can at least sort of imitate a person now. 5 years ago, not so much. Even 2 years ago, not so much. So I think first what happened was AI got usable. It could do things that people cared about and wanted to see. Next, big companies started releasing open source foundation models about a year and a half ago, like Meta, OpenAI, CompViz, Stability AI. Whisper, like that's like Whisper for ASR. There's the GPT model architectures, Llama. Stable Diffusion is obviously massive. All that getting released to the public definitely opened the floodgates a bit. And then finally, I think, compute is cheap enough. GPUs have always been expensive, but now that there's the hottest and brightest, H100s out there, people can use like Pascal's era GPUs to run their inference and stuff like that. So it's affordable to people. That's my spiel. Sorry, pass on.
I love it. I think like you're definitely right on the whole GPU thing, right? So I feel like crypto kind of helped that along in a lot of ways. Like people are like, well, we need better GPUs to be able to mine crypto. And as GPUs get better, we now have more, not cheaper, but more accessible training models. So AI has been around for quite a long time. I started, my first company was an AI company back in 2015. And we were building deep learning models in 2016, right? So that's been around. The difference is all the previous AI models they do a specific thing. So like, for example, self-driving cars, the car stays on the road. Image detection, it detects the image. Is the whale there or not? Is it a hot dog or not a hot dog, right? Those kinds of things. Whereas now what we're seeing is this whole era of generative AI, whereas this hasn't happened before. Like this generative AI has not been a thing until like the last couple of years, where you can literally have these large language models and you can train these systems to actually generate stuff for you, like generate code, generate artwork, generate text. Like all these things I think are making it way more accessible to everyone, because everyone needs to generate stuff. Whereas previously, not everyone needed to detect an image. Not everyone needed to use AI image recognition to be able to detect whether there's someone in a store or not, or like fall detection, things like that, right? These are all things that have a specific use case. Whereas every single person in the world has a need to write and even develop images. Like not most of us aren't artists. I am definitely not an artist. So being able to have an AI that can actually generate that for us, I think is really great. We have over 100 million people on GitHub. That's 100 million people writing code. So all of a sudden 100 million people writing code can now use generative AI to help that along. So I think you're right. There's a few things, the computer GPUs, the fact that we now have these large language models that are not just like little startup companies doing things, but backed by big businesses that have put a lot of effort and a lot of money and a lot of resources into making them actually good. And the fact that it is now literally accessible to any single person who has an internet connection. Like ChatGPT is free. Anyone can use it. So everyone now has access to be able to do these things. You don't even need a good computer to be able to do it. As previously, if you wanted to do something, you had to have the latest and greatest technology specs. You had to have a use case and a need for it. We no longer have that issue with AI. So that's why I think it's just become such a big thing that every single person is using.
Well, and I like how you brought that up, James, that having open source AI actually democratized it a little bit and is maybe part of the boom. And I'm wondering if somebody else wants to maybe talk about that a little bit more. And I think, James, one of the things that Paperspace is connected with is the open, I forget what it's called, but it's that chat. I think is it an open chat? Which one am I thinking of?
we do have big customers that are developing LLMs on us. I'm not sure.
Well, let's stick to the topic of open source. Why open source helped AI kind of boom a little bit.
To kind of piggyback off of Mish, it's Dylan's product that did that. It's so accessible now. Sorry, I talked over you, but yeah.
That's okay. I can speak about it a bit. Well, a little bit of background on it. I'd say that there was kind of as to the question, why is it exploding? I feel like there was kind of a tipping point with several products. Like one of them, what products? Well, anyway, text ChatGPT was obviously a huge point. And then you had sort of at the same time, diffusion models, stable diffusion. So one closed source, one open source. And then you also have, I think we're close to the tipping point on 3D, but who knows? We'll see soon. And then it's kind of interesting. All of these came together at once or close
around
together.
About the same time.
Yeah, around the same time. And then you know that it's actually a big deal when it affects like school or like younger people.
Yes.
Like it's funny because there was a decline in ChatGPT and people were like, oh no, it's declining. Is AI over? And it's like, no, school was out for the summer. Like that's how you know it's actually popular.
Yeah,
And
I
then-
was actually playing sport last weekend and I turn around and one of the girls in the tent has her laptop out and I'm like, are you working? And she's like, yeah, I am. I'm going to assignment due tonight. I'm like, okay, well, that's not working. That's doing your schoolwork. I was like, have you tried using ChatGPT? She flips her computer around and she's got one tab of ChatGPT open and the other tab of her writing her essay and then a third tab and a fourth tab of two other people's essays. So she's cross-referencing two other student essays and using ChatGPT. And I was like, this is unfair. Like, where was all this when I was at university? But you're right. Like, everyone is using it across the board in like every industry at every level. It's just mind blowing.
yeah.
I'm sure CEOs are writing their resumes with it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have a friend who's fantastic at his job, but he finds it really difficult to express himself and put into words his like job and his worth and all that kind of stuff. In the space of a month, he got 2 promotions using ChatGPT. He's like, it is just incredible because I can like kind of tell it what I want and it can help me articulate what I actually need to say and write in a letter. And I was like, that is really cool. And this was like back when like ChatGPT was first becoming a thing. People were like, is it actually good or not? And he's like, well, I've got 2 pay rises and 2 job promotions out of it. So yes.
Yeah, that's the clearest possible evidence you could have to how much it's exploding. Regarding open source, I'd say that with ChatGPT, it's not open source. With Stable Diffusion, it is. And I think that what that means when you look at what happened with Stable Diffusion, there was instantly like tons and tons of locally running specialized models that people are used for. There's like a huge community of people doing very specialized things. With text models, it took like a year or 2 before we're just now starting to catch up on small specialized local models that can do specific things. So you can't deny how powerful and useful ChatGPT is. But I think with open source, you can get these small specialized things running locally.
I think that's what's really exciting too, because like one of the talks I do is about like AI and the future of work, right? Like how do we work and show our value in the age of AI? And so there's 2 things. One is like actually using AI and understanding the limitations of it. But secondly, as developers, I'm like, you should be looking to see how you could potentially use AI in your development, how you can actually build it into the project you're using. But even just using and playing around either with open source projects or APIs, you can actually understand how a lot of these large language models work. Therefore, you can either refine and improve them, and again, understand limitations of a lot of these models and what they're actually designed to do. Because someone asked too recently in a talk, like, well, we've got all these great things like Stable Diffusion, we can make artwork, we've got ChatGPT, we can basically get them to do jobs better than we can. So what's to stop an AI who's, like ChatGPT going off and being able to now create artwork and do all these other things? I said, well, the interesting thing about AI, right, is it can only do what it's been trained to do. So ChatGPT has been trained to generate text. It can only ever generate text. It can't turn around one day and start creating artwork for you, like images, because it hasn't been trained to do that. Like it doesn't have that within the bounds and within like its model. And someone's like, well, couldn't it get smart enough? It's like, no, that's a very big limitation of AI over like the human mind, where we can literally learn something and go and apply it completely to something else and do something completely different. So I think we're safe there.
Yeah. Isn't ChatGPT limited to before 2021, if memory serves correctly? I think they've fixed it a little bit with reinforcement learning.
3.5 is. I don't know about the newer ones. So if you're using, if you've got access to GPT 3.5, it'll literally tell you as you ask for anything, like, as of my knowledge cutoff of September 2021. But the newer ones are being like trained on newer models. So they've already put, this is interesting, so a lot of people also ask me, when are we getting Jarvis? I was like, I actually don't know. And then OpenAI put ChatGPT 5, or sorry, not chat, but GPT 5, so the actual model, put that into a physical robot. And I was like, okay, we now have Jarvis. This is scary.
Yeah, I mean, it can only produce text, but it can definitely produce detailed instructions that if a different chatbot had learned to interpret and turn into motor commands, I don't know, we could have killer robots.
I think that we're getting into kind of one of the questions we wanted to explore a little bit more about, sort of what are some of the drawbacks. But before we do, I kind of wanted to hear from James Quick. You mentioned before that you have spoken about AI in the past, and I would love to hear kind of what you've gleaned from some of those conversations as it relates to what we're talking about here.
Yeah, the majority of stuff that I've talked about is addressing people's fear of AI. So developers are very scared of losing their jobs, and people, I don't know, kind of mentally go down a rabbit hole with that. And there's multiple different perspectives. One, it doesn't happen overnight, right? So we're not just all out of a job because AI is here now. It's not what's happening. But also, there's this really interesting idea that if AI can do something faster than we can, then why are we here? But that's only in the current scope of what we envision a body of work being. And there's this thing that I did research on called Devon's paradox, which I'd never heard of. And it's basically the idea of, if we find something that can do a job faster, instead of thinking that like it's going to replace us, maybe what we're capable of building as a whole is now just bigger than we ever imagined before. So when we fear being replaced, that's because we're only looking at the body of work that we can envision with the skill sets and the tools that we have, not with what we're able to do with the power of AI behind us. So I don't think jobs go away. I think stuff changes. I think how we do our job changes. We're already seeing people use ChatGPT and everything else on a daily basis. I use it on a daily basis. So I think the big takeaway for me is if you're scared that our jobs change and some of them go away over time gradually, the answer is yes, they will, but that's not any different than any other technological advancement that we've had in the past, right? Like before we had telephones or whatever signals that we could send people, we had people like carrying cards or letters, right? Like that was their job. I bet you those people were a little fearful of being out of a job when the telephone became around. So it's just one of these changes that's very similar to, different in its own way, but similar to every other advancement that we ever had. And if you're the type of person who is opposed to change and you're scared you're going to be left behind, I think you're right. Like you will, but that's always been the most successful people, and the most successful companies are the ones that are able to adapt and change. So if you're fearful, try to be open-minded for what the future may look like as a developer.
People have said one of their favorite quotes from my AI in the Future of Work talk has been, AI isn't necessarily going to replace jobs. People using AI will replace people not using AI.
Yeah.
Because if you're using AI, you're so much more efficient, effective. You can get so much more done. As you're saying, like the job changes. So why would I then hire someone who's slower, less efficient, all those kinds of things, right? So I think and that's like why that I give to people the two things, like use AI, like don't be fearful. Like if you don't use it, then you're not going to understand what it's going to do for you. You're not going to understand the capabilities of it, but you're also not going to understand the limitations of it, and therefore where you can add the most value as a human. Because we say too, like with GitHub Copilot, right? So many people have been asking the whole like, well, GitHub Copilot can write stuff like code for me. Does that mean we have no need for developers? I was like, 100% no. Like GitHub Copilot makes the work you do more fun by allowing you to do a lot of those meaningless, not meaningless, but like mundane tasks, repetitive tasks. It can spit out all of that for you and allow you to have more time for the more intense problem solving things, to figure out like the best way to actually do something. And the other thing too is people need to realize that we as the people are still responsible for the code that we ship at the end of the day. And same thing if we're using ChatGPT, we're still responsible for whatever text and output we put at the end of the day. So we can't just get a Copilot or ChatGPT to write something and then just ship it and say, oh, sorry, it didn't work. Like blame the AI that did it. Like, no, you are responsible for the code you ship. You are responsible for the things you write. And as a developer, you need to be constantly reviewing that code. You're working with an AI. That'd be like saying, hey, Mish and James go work together on a project. I'd be like, oh, James is smarter than me. You do it all, James. Like, that's not a collaboration, right? Like, I feel like if people see like AI as and as we say with GitHub Copilot, a helpful pair programmer, or with, more general AI, a helpful pair worker, then we'll actually get a whole lot more stuff done. Like, quick example, I built the website for my wedding. We just got engaged recently, built the whole website for my wedding. Took me 8 hours using GitHub Copilot. It probably would have taken me 2 weeks to write the whole thing like by myself without using GitHub Copilot. Now, I was still needed, like those 8 hours was still needed by me, but it just allowed me to do things so much quicker and gave me a lot of extra ideas as well. So I think people just need to, as James is saying, understand that it is another type of new technology, understand how to use it, understand where it's beneficial, and then understand where we can add the most benefit as a person.
What you said about Copilot, I wonder what you think of the analogy that AI is kind of like a hammer. Like it's a tool that you can use for good or bad things.
Yes.
It's mostly good things, but obviously bad things too. But I think when people
100%, right?
Yeah.
Like, people are like, well, does that mean we could get, like, yes, there's all those, bad actors, we can get bad code ship. We can do like have all those things that go wrong. But like GitHub Copilot's not always right either. This is the other thing. Like, we need to understand that these AI systems are not always correct. They might have like factually grounded information, but not factually correct information, right? So like if I get ChatGPT to write a bio about me, it starts writing something nice, like I'm a developer advocate at GitHub, I'm into the gaming space. I'm like, oh, this sounds great. And then it says, I have a PhD in science, chemistry major. And I was like, that's cool. Like, that would be nice if I had a PhD, but I don't. It means that like it's not necessarily incorrect. There's possibly another Michelle Mannery out there that has a PhD in chemistry. So the information is grounded, but for my context, it's not factually correct, which is why we need people to come along, fact check things, refine what the AI is giving us. Like, I like to think about AIs as interns. So if I had an intern, I said, go write me a proposal to get this project, I would not get their like proposal and submit it to my boss without checking it, right? In the same way, we shouldn't give something to ChatGPT and go, yep, sweet, great, just send that off and that's the proposal. Like, we would check it, we would refine it, we would fact check it, we would take things out, add things in. Like, that's where we need to be as people. Like, that is our like secret sauce stuff that the AI is never not going to be able to do for a very long time.
Well, and that raises a really interesting question for me too, because we had one of our Hacktoberfest Advisory Council members attend the GitHub Maintainer Summit. And one of the issues that came up was that maintainers were really worried about the quality of PRs they were going to start to see that are AI generated. And then that member of the advisory council was like, how is that going to affect spam for Hacktoberfest? So to give folks a little bit of context, what ends up happening with Hacktoberfest is that people want to achieve the challenge, which is to complete 4 pull requests, get 4 accepted pull requests. And then in order to do that, they will sometimes try and create fraudulent repositories and that are just like, add your name to this, or they do spammy PRs that are just like changing, a minor line of code and not actually helping the actual project. So in the context of AI, like, how is that now that Hacktoberfest has been going on for like a few weeks now? I'm curious if there's been any noise about that now, or how maintainers are handling that AI generated PRs. I
want to see some maintainers on this call because I'm actually, this was something I was relatively interested in too, is like, how is it going to make higher quality PRs, which means are people going to be using AI to go, hey, I can basically do anything now. Like, I'm just going to pick an issue and I can probably use GitHub Copilot to fix it for me. Or are we actually seeing so are we seeing that high quality, or are we just seeing people not checking code, like not checking what the AI is generating and just submitting a whole lot of stuff, making more work for maintainers? So I don't think anyone on this call is a maintainer, right, of an open source project. Yeah, I mean, like I've got a couple of small ones, but like again, nothing big enough to get some like big PRs. So I reckon if anyone in the chat is a maintainer of a large project, I would like to hear from you, please.
James, you unmuted. James, quick, I saw you. Did you have something to say on that?
If I unmuted, it was unintentional. I'm not a big maintainer, so I have nothing to add.
All good.
I haven't seen a whole lot. I mean, code generation specifically, other than pretty much Copilot, feels pretty not there yet to me. So I don't know. I haven't heard about that quite as much. And what makes Copilot neat is the integration as well. Like everything else, you have to like go out, copy and paste, get the result, paste it back in. That level of abstraction actually will stop people from doing things. Like the fact that Copilot just works in, you can get like a VS Code extension or whatever. I think that's a huge edge over a lot of the other open source products, especially.
Well,
have you tried GitHub Copilot Chat yet?
Not yet.
You should definitely try it. So anyone who wants to try GitHub Copilot Chat, is available in public beta. It's like having that conversation with ChatGPT, but about your code as well. So like, for example, you could say, hey, write me a website, like a Space Invaders website, like a game for it. And instead of just spitting out all the code straight away, it'll say something like, sure, what requirements do you have for this game? What language would you like to write it in? And then when it gives you the code, it actually explains what it's giving you as well. So if you're like, all right, here is the code that starts up and initializes the game window. If you put this into a new file, you'll be able to, and then it gives you the code. So it's really cool. I can actually show some of it if anyone actually wants to see it.
Ooh, live demo.
Feel free to keep chatting until I pop it up.
This is sort of a non sequitur, but does it know Gradio? Because if it does, that would mean unlimited new spaces.
I'll give you a quick down. Here we go. I'll share my screen really quickly, just because it's really cool. I can do a window actually, which is awesome. Here we go. So like, actually, this is the code for my wedding. Hopefully you can actually see it. Can everyone see this? Yep. People can see it.
Yeah, we can see it. It's just a little tiny.
Yeah, I'll see if I can zoom in a bit because. Okay. So like, this is my Copilot chat window, right? So like, for example, I asked, how to add metadata to my website. So instead of just going blot, here's the code. It's like, here, to add this, you should include the appropriate meta tags. And here's an example. And then it even tells you, like, in this example, do this. And then you can also include other things, and then gives you an example of that. And then what I like too is as you're like writing things down, so here I've done this, it'll give you this, like, here's an idea for like the next thing you should ask me. So you can like just click that and say, okay, well, like how to optimize meta tags. And he goes, yeah, to optimize, you should follow these steps. So it doesn't just do code. It does other things around the code that you're working with. So like another one was I had issues with my CSS. So I was like, how do I check to see if my CSS was working? It was like, follow these like 5 steps to check to see if your CSS is working. And then like you could keep asking questions or you could start something completely new as well. So this is a really fun experience. You can even say like, explain the code on screen. Let's see what it says. Yeah, shows how the meta tags. Yeah, so like this is what's on screen here. And then yeah, finally the code links to CSS files. Like, so I feel like this is a lot more like learning as well. So if you're like not specifically like brand new to development, but if you're like upping your development game, or say you're working in a different language as well, this is just so helpful. It is just so good to be able to like do all these things like, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? You can even do things like write me a unit test for this, convert this ARM file to bicep, like find the bug and fix it. Like, it's like, there's just so much like cool stuff you can do with GitHub Copilot Chat. And again, this is all available right now in public beta. So I would highly encourage you to go try it now while it's all free and fun and like just
There you
play
go.
around with it. It's really good.
That should answer your question, Douglas. Copilot does not currently have a cost, correct?
So GitHub Copilot does. So I think it's like it's either $9 a month, $9.99 a month, or like $100 for the whole year as a user. If you want to use GitHub Copilot for business, so if you want like a business license, so the next big question we get about GitHub Copilot, especially with people who are wanting to use it for work, is how do I ensure that my code isn't being leaked out into like other people's code suggestions, right? So we had issues, not we did, but certain companies ban their employees from using ChatGPT because they're leaking company secrets into like, the responses and things. So using GitHub Copilot for Business means any response sent to the server or coming back from the server never hits disk, so it's never stored anywhere. So that is $19 a person for that, but your business pays for it, and then you can have GitHub Copilot. But as I mentioned, to use it so if you have never used GitHub Copilot, you can use it for free for 60 days. So like this is a really great time to try it out. And right now, GitHub Copilot Chat is in public beta, and that's free. So if you'd like to use that, highly encourage you to go to. It's like every time I do it, I'm just like, wow, this is so cool. Like it's just mind blowing every single time. Like I do workshops on it. And I'll be like silent for a good 10 seconds. Everyone's like, is everything okay? I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm just blown away by like the response I'm getting right now. It's just so cool. Has anyone else here used it, by the way?
I have it installed and I haven't used it. And you've given me the motivation to use it. It gives me a little prompt at the top of like an empty file. So I will use it in the next week and I'll let you know what I think. Although I'm sure it's amazing. I have to turn off Copilot when I record videos because it won't let me teach. Like I'm usually doing how-to videos and I'm like, here's how you, and then it just writes all the code.
And it just writes it for you and you're like, oh.
Yeah, so I have to turn it off a lot of the time. And then when I'm writing code myself, I miss it. So I just created a little tip for content creators, separate profile in VS Code. So I can switch between profiles to my recording profile when I'm doing recordings and have it be turned off then, but then turn back on when I'm doing coding. So
that's smart. Good tip.
So I think this is interesting because I remember the same kind of anxieties coming around a while back when people were really getting into the automation of scripts and jobs and getting all that stuff done. And there was that argument. It's like, well, my whole thing is that I move this bucket of code to this bucket of code. So it's like, what does that happen? And there was shakeups, but no one really lost anything from these things happening, right? The people who didn't have to do that moving things from bucket A to bucket B, they ended up with 20 more minutes of their time that they can move more buckets. Because let's face it, it's like any task fills up the time that you have available. But given that, it's like seeing between what that was like to now, where do you see the industry once like truly open source and AI projects really start to get through all corners of the developer space instead of just like people who are experimenting with it and people who are using AI, building AI specific tooling?
I think from the GitHub Copilot end, at least, we have over 12,000 businesses now using GitHub Copilot for business. So they're specifically using it for their like daily development jobs, which is really cool. Another kind of interesting, but also mind-blowing stat. So we track everything, right? 46% of all the code now committed to the internet is written by an AI. So that's incredible when you think about it. Nearly half the code going onto the internet now is written by an AI. So like that is like when you think about it, you're like, okay, so that's about half is being like people are using AI. Like, so I think a lot of it is, especially for code, because the thing is, GitHub Copilot has been around for a bit longer than some of these other like ChatGPT and Stable Diffusion, things like that. Like we relaunched it in 2021, so it's like more than 2 years now that's been out. So I feel like it's, especially GitHub Copilot, it's a little bit out of that like experimental phase now. Like people are using it in their like development jobs day. Like we've got developers saying like, I wouldn't ever use like Word without spell checker. So I'm never going to write code without GitHub Copilot. And like, you know, like if I was writing in a language I was unfamiliar with, having GitHub Copilot is like having Google Translate. Like for a lot of developers, we're seeing now is that GitHub Copilot is just another tool that they've added to like their just general development stack, which is pretty, I see all the mind blows in the other chat, right? Like it's just a part of everyone's jobs now. And like we're getting developers too saying like, if my workplace doesn't allow us to use GitHub Copilot, I'm not going to work there. I'm going to go to another workplace that allows us to use the best tools to do the job, essentially. So there's just a few stats from like the GitHub Copilot side of it anyway.
Just to elaborate also a little more, one thing that I develop AI for a living. I still am a little anxious about this is I worry about the rising of efficiency. I think, all new technology gives everybody the means to be quicker, more efficient at doing what they're doing, raise their efficacy in whatever way. But as more and more of this new technology proliferates, the expectations get higher and higher. So, to use an older example, if you were working on a line building cars, you got replaced with the robot arm that could do it faster, or something like that. So I feel like people are always worried about like how we match up to that expectation or whatever. And I don't think that we're going to ever reach like a saturation point. I feel like people are just going to continue to have to master AI. So that's going to be like an interesting thing in the future. I think a lot of people are going to be, started and stopped by their ability to get used to the addition of the tool. So I get a little rambly there at the end.
Well, I just want to say, I know, James, you've got to take off. There's hungry babies in the household that need to be fed. And so, yeah, I just want to give you one last chance to kind of talk a little bit before you go, anything that we've chatted here. And then we're going to quickly move into Q&A. And we have a really great question in the chat that I'll surface here in just a second. But before you go, James, drop some knowledge on us.
I don't know about the dropping of knowledge, but go back to the conversation earlier about being left behind. Being curious about things is super important. Not being stagnant in your career from your skill set is super important, like paying attention to what's going on. And that means sometimes ignoring some things because the trends come and go and they come really quickly and they seem like they're really popular, but they may just be trends. But at a certain point, I think especially AI and the tools that are out there and how good they've become already are really worth investing some time in. So I would just think forward to like what skill set is going to help carry you forward in your career and help you not get left behind. And I think a great way to do that is just being a part of conversations like this, joining communities, whatever that is, whether it's being on Twitter or in Discord or Slack or in-person communities or going to conferences. I'm a huge community person. The impact that the community has had on me is huge. And I owe so much, I think, to where I am in my career to just being around super smart people that are having conversations about stuff that help give me perspective on technologies and career and personal life and all those kinds of things. So that's the big thing I would leave people on is just having curiosity and wanting to take their skill set and invest in themselves going forward, especially, and this goes a little dark path on like how fickle the industry is with layoffs. Every day, every week, more and more of them are happening. And I think it's never been more important for your skill set to be evolving and then also your network to be evolving as well, because you don't create a network when you need it. You create a network beforehand. So by the time you need it, you have it to leverage. So I would just highly encourage people to invest in themselves, both technically and then invest in the community, which is my definition of networking, so that it's not sterile and cold. It's more genuine and natural. So those are just the thoughts that are top of mind for me as I look forward to going downstairs and taking care of a baby.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show, James. We really, I can't agree with you more. I mean, I'm 100% community. It's what we can genuinely do for each other that makes the difference. So, thank you so much. We'll say
Absolutely.
goodbye to James, and then we'll move into quick
See ya.
questions. I'm going to highlight a question here from Raja. Raja says, I'm curious about the impact of AI on cybersecurity and its implications for cybersecurity startups. Can we discuss this topic? I don't think any of us are security specialists, but maybe one of you has some insight into that.
Well, I can talk about a little bit about attacks on LLM services and things like that. I think we're going to see whole new kinds of cybersecurity threats that are going to be, if not enabled by AI, given the possibility to exist because of these AI tools, so to speak. So one thing that I think ChatGPT and Bard I've seen have reported is, people doing these, I can't remember the exact terminology, the Red Hat attacks or whatever it is, where they'll send in basically these specialized messages that are formatted in such a way that it'll essentially do like a code injection or something like that. And then on the back end, that will mess up things that are working. And I was just reading a paper about this the other day. I'm ashamed I don't remember more details. I'm sorry. But I think we're, as we continue to move away from human level security things, whatever that may be, not having a person being the one who stops whatever from happening, there's just going to be more and more avenues for us to get in the way of that. So I would say that the impact of AI on cybersecurity is going to be monumental. That being said, there's going to be just as much effort to do defensive measures from AI. So it's going to be an ad blocker versus ad situation, I think. Constant battle and improvement over one another. I hope that answered something.
And we're happy to stay here a few minutes over if folks want to ask some more questions. You've got some of the industry's top folks hanging out here, so this is your chance to get that insider perspective.
Thank you, Raja.
And while we're waiting for that, I do want to say, I think one thing that I would love for us to try and encapsulate, if we can, is, if we're interested in getting into AI right now, like if we want to do something, and James kind of touched on it just a second ago, it's just being open and trying and getting involved with communities. But what are some other things we should be doing right now if we want to investigate AI?
I recommend taking the Fast AI track on Paperspace. It's a pretty comprehensive deep learning course that you can run for free on our free GPUs. That's a really good place to start. I mean, it is an expansive field. If you're not gonna, nobody's a generalist anymore. So, my recommendation is pick something to focus on, hone in, learn the underlying technologies. Something like Fast AI would give you a good starting point. Start working with GPUs as soon as possible, things like that. Learn the tools, the packages. I keep shouting you out. Like, I'm just genuinely a fan, Dylan. Like, the Hugging Face packages are actually amazing. Like, Transformers in particular has like tons of tutorials on their website that are really, really nice for getting started with that stuff. Like, so if you're into like NLP, LLMs, that's probably the best place to start. It's how I learned about it 2 years ago.
Thanks. That's super nice of you. I would say if you're getting started, if you already know a bit about ML computer science, then yeah, go to Hugging Face. Follow all the Hugging Face employees on Twitter. You'll be definitely caught up with all the state-of-the-art AI right now, and you'll be able to use it. If you don't have any knowledge of AI yet, or you're a beginner, then follow me. Individual Kex, look up some YouTube videos, and you'll get super fast-paced, no nonsense tutorials for beginners on AI.
That's my
Mine,
level.
mine are a little more involved, but I'm going to plug myself too at blog.paperspace.com.
I did want to mention that DAGS Hub was supposed to be here tonight and they weren't able to make it. And so I just dropped into the chat a little bit about what DAGS Hub is. Very similar to Hugging Face. They also are a place similar to GitHub as well, where you can start up a machine learning project and you can have all of your models and manage all of your data and your experiments in one place. And so please go check them out. It's great to have lots of diversity in this space. And so there's lots to learn across different companies. So I definitely go check out DAGS Hub. And I know that they are also doing some specific initiatives around Hacktoberfest. So they have some open source projects that you can contribute to. So we always love that when people partner with us in the community, when they can open up their projects for people to contribute to as part of Hacktoberfest. So I know Hugging Face is doing that as well. Dylan, I don't know if you want to mention anything about that.
I don't have anything on that. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. If you are curious, go to I believe that Hugging Face has a bunch of repositories that are labeled with Hacktoberfest as the topic. And those are the ones that you can contribute to. So just go and search on that. All right, folks. Well, since we don't seem to have many more.
We have two more.
Yeah.
2 questions. Oh, so sorry.
They're just
One-
a little back.
One is, what is the future of AI in medicine and healthcare? If anyone has any idea what that is, or
I would like to take this one if that's okay.
go ahead.
So I have 2 doctors in my family, a sister and a brother, and each of them take a interesting view of AI in healthcare. One of them takes a more cynical viewpoint. Oh, it's going to make everything worse and bad. The other one takes a more optimistic viewpoint. He also worked in radiology. So he's like, for example, when I work in radiology, so radiology is doing all the x-rays. So you have like 20 people come in for x-rays for the day. So everyone gets the x-ray done, and it's usually by a nurse or like a image person. And then you have to sit there in the hospital waiting to get the results of your x-ray. Usually it means people are waiting there for ages, and also the doctors are completely swamped because they're going through looking at every single x-ray to see who actually needs help and who doesn't. They used an image, like an AI image recognition software, and what it was able to do is triage everyone. So they said, right, well, these 15 people are fine. They can go home. They just need some rest, ice elevation, that kind of stuff. And it meant the other 5 people that needed to actually be looked at, the doctors could reassess the x-rays and actually sit down and work with those 5 people. So it meant that the hospital was less full, the people who were well could go home, and the doctors had the time and space to actually look after the people that actually needed care. So by using AI in ways like this within healthcare, it means that we can actually help a lot more people. It doesn't mean that we're replacing the doctors' jobs. Doctors are already swamped, right? So my brother was like, literally any way that we can get help, we will take it. Another example is I had friends who they developed this like anemia software. So basically it used the camera out of your mobile phone, and you took a photo of the eye, and it could tell you if someone was predisposed to anemia or not. And what that was great for was they actually put it in developing countries because pretty much everyone had access to a phone, but not everyone had access to a doctor or could afford to go to a doctor. So again, what it did was it triaged the people who actually needed to go and see a doctor, and the doctors could come out and see those people rather than looking at 5,000 kids within a community. They could look at the 100 who are actually predisposed to that condition. So I think AI in healthcare is going to make a massive difference to not just triaging healthcare systems, but actually providing and helping doctors provide patients with more personalized care. So I think that's what the healthcare system is moving towards, especially like GPs. It's much more about personalized care. If you've been to a GP recently, they use less generic stuff now, and it's much more, all right, let's figure out what is wrong with you as a person, and let's look at a personalized healthcare plan is what a lot of them do. My sister, who's works more in the GP space, she's like, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to do, and I want to see it move more towards that. So I think AI can help in all of those situations.
I don't know if folks saw, but James dropped in an interesting shout out in the chat about closed loop, which, so that has related to healthcare, but it's also a tool. And that goes back to our next question, which is, what are some open source projects what are some open source projects probably in early stages that the panel finds really exciting?
There hasn't been any new totally rock the world foundation models in the last 4 months or so. I'm excited about the work Ultralytics is doing for the next YOLO iteration. I have a feeling a YOLO V8 was a massive step forward in every direction for object detection. So I expect the YOLO V9 to be really cool, but there isn't really much word on when that will be. Stable Diffusion, Whisper, and Llama 2 are still taking up most of my interest, most of my time. They are proper foundation models that, totally change the industry. There's cool projects going on that are kind of spinoffs of those. Been liking Distill SD, which is a distilled version of Stable Diffusion. I think I saw... Eureka, which is doing a new human level reward design for coding with large language models. Yeah, hasn't been anything I'm super obsessed with lately. I'm sorry, I'm just dominating. Somebody else go.
I'm obsessed with something. So I mentioned earlier that I think we're close to a tipping point in 3D. And I would definitely recommend looking into Gaussian splatting. It came out a month or two ago, and it's a super cool technique for rendering. And it kind of ties in with AI to an extent, in the sense that, well, I did my PhD in language representation grounded to the 3D world, and it didn't work at all. But I think that the issue was that we don't have a good representation of 3D space. And this limits a lot of benchmarks. If you look up Alfred, there's a benchmark called Alfred that is a robot actually doing things, or at least giving the commands as if it were doing things. And it fails by a lot. Human performance is 95%. The state-of-the-art AI today is 50%. And that's because we haven't solved 3D. And I don't know for sure, but I think we're very close to a lot of breakthroughs in this that is going to totally change. It's going to be the next level after... If you think of ChatGPT as one, I think the next one will be involving 3D in the language. So I'd recommend keeping an eye on that, although it's very on the frontier right now.
It's a lot better than Nerf and stuff. I definitely second, what he's saying. It's really, really cool. And I put a link to the project page in the chat.
Thanks.
I totally forgot about that one. That's a game changer. GPT for All is being developed on Paperspace. I might as well shout them out as well. They're a pretty cool LLM project that's open source. Definitely recommend you all give that a Google. Nomic AI makes that. It's probably my favorite, free to play with spinoff of the Llama 2 models. It's an instruction model, I think. They might have added a chat version since I last checked, but I'm not sure.
Is that the GPT for All?
Yeah.
There you go. There's yours in the chat.
Thank you. That's the one made with NeoX, which is actually proper open source. They have a... for those of you who are not aware, Llama is open source. You can't really use it with anything that would be commercial, but anybody can play with it and access it. So that's why it's quotations open source. A lot of the meta models are like that. But bless them, Meta is, their AI stuff is really awesome. So I can't really complain. but worth mentioning. Oh, Mosaic's MPT models, Mosaic ML, I quite like them as well. And the Falcon models, I can't remember who did those. There's a lot of cool stuff. Even when I'm sitting here being like, there's nothing cool, I can still rattle off 10 cool things. So it's a hotbed.
It's also very interesting when you can scale a technology. Is like, oh, nothing really happened in the past 4 months.
I'm just really excited about all the new GitHub Copilot stuff coming. It's gonna be so cool. If you want to sneak preview anytime, GitHub Next. So I think it's next.github.com. Let me just double check. So next.github.com is like all the things that we're working on next as part of GitHub. It doesn't necessarily mean that these things will definitely go into production. Some of them are just projects that we're working on. Some of them do go into features for a product that's already available. Some of them go into build new products. But this is all like the fun, cool things that we're working on next. As we said, it's not guaranteed that all these things will end up going to go full into completion. But if you have a look at, for example, there's a couple of things on there. GPT-4 with Calc. It says it was completed this year. It says there's a waitlist for GitHub Copilot for pull requests. There's a waitlist for GitHub Copilot for docs. There's a waitlist for GitHub Copilot for voice. It says there's a usable prototype of GitHub Copilot for CLI. So there's lots of really cool stuff on there. And GitHub Universe is kind of like where we actually do the announcements for like what will actually be our new features coming out over like the next 6 months to a year. So I'm really excited about all those new things. I think some of the new GitHub Copilot things like GitHub Copilot for docs, GitHub Copilot for CLI, GitHub Copilot for pull requests, these are going to be such really good things that are hopefully going to make developers' lives so much easier.
Do y'all ever hear folks express concern over everything being extracted away and us forgetting how to do things manually? When we talk about, the future and the fears of the future.
I do hear that, but I've also heard that stuff since I was in college, right? Because they still made us take C classes when I was in college. And you can't make me do that for any amount of time. I think there is a difference between using an AI tool, developing an AI tool, and going full on into the issues of things like code ownership and identity within as it is in the code. And I think one of the biggest issues right now is that people are conflating all of them into one thing, and they are actually very different issues. And that's just me being the one person here who is not an AI expert. But I think that is kind of the frustration where it's like, oh, is seasoned engineers telling junior engineers you're not going to know how to code this actual thing. It's like eventually you do figure out what a strong structure looks like because it'll stop breaking. That's just what experience is.
Well said.
Are there any other questions in the chat?
Yeah, it's a remote control argument. James put in the chat his like, how do you know how to work the TV if you can't work a knob? It's like my TV has no buttons on it and I hate it.
The future.
So when we lose a remote, we don't use the TV for like 3 hours until it comes back.
Well, that was kind of my point. It's like I do wonder how much like what gets lost, right? Like, but you have to look at the flip side of that, which is what is gained. Obviously the speed and agility that we're able to create things is, maybe outpaces the need to know how to do things manually.
There are
There's-
systems in this world that exist that do very sensitive things where one dude is not being allowed to retire because he's the only person who uses it. So this is just, it's one of those things. If it was important enough for one person to be kept around for, it will still exist. And the key is to not be this guy because he's never allowed to quit his job.
I do happen to know that people who work for the for NOAA still, there are still some
Yeah.
people who code in COBOL
Oh, yeah.
and DBAS.
I think that COBOL programmers, there's not a lot of jobs, but they pay extremely well because
Yeah.
how few people.
Because 20 people can do that job.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't need 100 jobs if you only have 20 guys.
I think I was talking to somebody a few months ago about how they had a job in like the mid 2000s doing Perl. And I was like, wow, how? Shoot, I actually had something I wanted to bring up and I lost it. I'm sad at myself.
Leave a comment on the video, James. Would you remember? I promise I'll answer it. I will.
Well, I do want to be sensitive to time. I am really appreciative of everybody who's tuned in today and stayed with us. This conversation has been so fascinating to me. I love conversations like this where we get to, laugh and talk and share, kind of what's going on in our worlds and speculate about what's happening for others. And so, yeah, if you do think of something, please go comment on the video. This video is being recorded and it will be available to watch live as soon as we end the stream. And I'm going to do a last call for questions. If anybody has any last questions for James or Mish or Dylan or Amy or I.
I'll go back on that YouTube and answer your questions if you add them there. I'll talk about that now.
And if you're participating in Hacktoberfest, please go complete your pull requests or your merge requests. We would really love to see those PRs come in.
You get more pins. You get
Open
more pins that
source
way.
Needs you. Open source needs you. And so, yeah, we would love to see you contributing. So go do it. And don't forget to modify your Hacktobernaut that you receive when you register for Hacktoberfest. You get a digital avatar that you can personalize. And when you've completed all 4 of your PRs, MRs, you can go have your personal avatar appear on the Hacktoberfest badge board of fame, which I've just thrown the link in the chat. And if anybody wants to see what that looks like, I can show you.
Oh, that's cute.
So you can see here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah. So you can see that here's somebody with a base avatar, even though they're a level 4, they haven't decided to modify it, but you can pick a background, you can pick different footwear, a different helmet. And I love this one with a cat face and the heart eyes. So yeah, it's fun. And it looks like we've got 345 people who are, you could also add your handle and your portfolio links. People are promoting themselves on here. So it's a great way to share with the community.
So how do we know we got those pull requests or not?
So that is a great question.
For people who are looking and going, oh, I don't know what I'm up to. And
yeah. So in your Hacktoberfest profile, which I can also share with you, hang on one sec. I'll share my screen again. Let's see if I can pull it up. Okay. Now I can do it. There we go. Can y'all see that? Okay, yeah. So this is my profile, and you're gonna laugh because I am woefully behind on my my progress. You can see that I have not made a single PR yet, but don't worry, there's still time. So yeah, in here you're going to be able to see your progress, and then you can see here I've received some rewards. So I've got a Holopin avatar that I can go claim, and then I've also got badges from Hacktoberfest, from Holopin and from AllaCloud and from Appright. And so all of that will be listed there. If you complete all 4, you'll also receive your digital reward kit, which includes some gifts from our sponsors. So kind of a fun thing that you can receive. And I know some of our sponsors are doing physical swag. So if you want stickers and things like that, go get them.
So for people who have got pull requests and it might say waiting for them, how long does it usually take for those pull requests to go through? They have countdown timers on the website.
It depends on the maintainer. If the maintainer is able to, maybe they have GitHub Actions going and they can just, automatically approve it, it could be really quick, but sometimes it can take a little bit longer. So it's always a good idea to start a relationship with the maintainer of the project that you're contributing to. I think, the more that you can work with them and have them know who you are so that they can reach out to you is good. Obviously, if it's a really big project and they've got tons of people contributing to it, it might not be as easy, but it could take a few days. And there is a waiting period as well for it to be.
Yeah, so that waiting period is probably what some people might have questions about. Like they might be like, oh, my PR has actually been accepted by my maintainer and it's now sitting in this 7-day review period.
Yes.
Does that matter? Will I still get my Holopin reward, even if, say, if I started now and the 7-day period will end at the end of Hacktoberfest, will I still get that? Am I still counted in the first 50,000? It's like asking all the questions people have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think I dropped that in the private chat. Sorry, hang on. Let me drop this in the actual chat. Here is the Hacktoberfest FAQ. We definitely answered that question there, but yes, you're correct, Mish. Sorry, I'm roundabout way of answering your question.
That's all right.
7 days. And so all PRs should be everything should be finalized and completed by November 8th. Everything should be through by November 8th. So it takes a little while for all of those PRs and waiting to get through. And we'll be doing a recap blog post and sharing out kind of how things worked out this year. So look for that on November 15th. Oh, I love it, Emily. This is awesome.
And again, Phoebe, we really appreciate you continuing to make sure Hacktoberfest runs. I was very excited to hear that was running again, and also for the 10-year celebration. So thank you for all your hard work, Phoebe, and the rest of the DigitalOcean team for making sure this continues to run, because it's such an exciting time for especially first-time contributors as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, Hacktoberfest is a wonderful thing, and I'm very passionate about it because it does bring people together, and it's kind of a phenomenon, and it's really rare to get to work on something like that. So yeah, it's really special, and I appreciate all of you as well. So folks, we're gonna wrap it up. Any last words from the group?
Thanks everyone for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all very much. Really appreciate your time listening, and thank you both, Amy and Phoebe.
You bet. Thanks, everyone. Everyone have a great night or morning, depending on
or at whatever time it is where you